You probably eat about 1.5 pounds of honey a year. The average American does, according to the USDA. I've been beekeeping for about half a year, and while I don't have my own bees, I've joined a lot of different people doing a lot of different bee-related things. I've joined beekeepers in LA, San Francisco, and Belfast, all focused on different aspects of taking care of a hive. Bees are complicated little creatures with many different roles and many different responsibilities. Today I'll be talking to you about the history of beekeeping, the dynamics of a hive, including the process of making honey, and how to extract it. According to Perfect Bee, a community for mostly beginning beekeepers, people have been eating honey for about 15,000 years. The first people to actually beekeep were the ancient Egyptians. They would move the hives down the Nile or on the backs of donkeys with the change of the seasons. Since then, the equipment used to keep bees has changed significantly, primarily in terms of hives. So Langstroth hives are now the only hives that you can legally keep bees in. They look like this. There's a bottom board with an entrance for bees, 3 boxes, those are called supers or brood boxes, and in them are vertically hung frames that contain honey and brood, which are baby bees, and a top cover. In a hive, there are about 60 to 80,000 bees, who all have different roles. Generally, they're grouped into 2 different categories: house bees, who have stayed inside the hive their whole lives, have never flown outside of it, and foragers, who do fly outside the hive. Phil Grad is the owner of the Big Island Bee Company, the largest honey producer in Hawaii. And in his article, Beehive Hierarchy and Activities, he talks a lot about different roles that bees have within a hive. So for house bees, some of these roles include nurse bees who feed and care for growing larvae, attendants who groom and feed the queen, and bees who build honeycomb, pack pollen into cells so they can eat it later, and work on cleaning and repairing the hive. And for foragers, those include guard bees, who guard the hive from other bees, wasps, whatever it may be, and foragers who leave the hive to collect nectar and pollen. And bees actually consume both nectar and pollen. Pollen is a protein and nectar is a carbohydrate, and the nectar is also turned into honey. So honey is really important to bees because it's their food. They work all spring and summer to collect honey, to collect nectar and turn it into honey. And then when fall and winter roll around, it becomes too cold for them to fly around and keep doing that. So they stay inside, keep each other warm, and eat all the honey that they've made. So how do they make it? There are house bees who actually fan nectar, and that evaporates the water out of it, turning it into honey. And ripe honey is only 15% water. Any more of that would mean that it's not ripe and it could go bad. So how do we know that the honey's ready? That's actually the first step in honey extraction. So first you pull the frames out of the hive. You want to make sure that all the honey has wax cappings over it, which you'll see in a minute. And then you do a shake test, which is exactly what it sounds like. You hold the frame over the hive, give it a little shake, and if anything drips out, that honey isn't ripe yet. And then the second step is to remove those wax cappings. That looks like this. You do it with a hot knife, which is just a warm serrated knife, and as you can see, he's just slicing the wax cappings right off. After you do that, you take all of those frames and put them in the honey extractor. This is an older model, so it holds less frames, and you can see he's turning it manually as opposed to with an electric motor. But yeah, it moves the frames in a fast circular motion, causing all the honey to drip out, and then it drips out into the jar or bucket or whatever container you're using to collect the honey. And that's actually the last step in honey extraction is jarring. You can choose to strain out whatever propolis or wax or dirt got into the honey, but that's really up to the manufacturer. And then generally speaking, you don't put the supers and frames back onto the hive because usually you're collecting honey at the end of the season. So bees are done producing honey. So we talked about the history of beekeeping, the dynamics of a hive, and the process of producing and extracting honey. We have to make sure that we're taking care of these bees, not just the captive bees that people keep in their backyard, but native bees too. So make sure that if you're planting things, you're planting pollinator-friendly plants, and if you have a garden, use pollinator-friendly herbicides and pesticides. Not together though, because that combination of chemicals hasn't actually been tested to be pollinator-friendly, so you could be doing a lot more harm than you think. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a beautiful day.